very welcome you all to Spindyjet Aviation. Today we see about why the A380 production stopped. First of all, see about Airbus A380. The Airbus A380 is the world's largest passenger airliner, a wide-body aircraft manufactured by Airbus. Airbus studies started in 1988 and the project was announced in 1990 to challenge the dominance of the Boeing 747 in the long-haul market. The A3XX project was presented in 1994. Airbus launched the €9.5 billion ($10.7 billion) A380 program on 19 December 2000. The first prototype was unveiled in Toulouse on 18 January 2005, with its first flight on 27 April 2005. It obtained its EASA and FAA type certificates on 12 December 2006. Difficulties in electrical wiring caused a 2-year delay and the development cost ballooned to €18 billion. It was first delivered to Singapore Airlines on 15 October 2007 and entered service on 25 October. Production peaked at 30 per year in 2012 and 2014. However, Airbus concedes that its $25 billion investment for the aircraft cannot be recouped. On 14 February 2019, after Emirates reduced its last orders in favor of the A350 and the A330neo, Airbus announced that production would end by 2021. The full-length double-deck aircraft has a typical seating capacity of 525, though it is certified for up to 853 passengers. It is powered by 4-engine Alliance GP7200 or Rolls-Royce Trent 900 turbofans, providing a range of 8,000 nmi (14,800 km). As of February 2019, Airbus has received 290 firm orders and delivered 234 aircraft. Emirates is the biggest A380 customer with 123 ordered, of which 109 have been delivered. Total development cost in 2000, the projected development cost was €9.5 billion. In 2004, Airbus estimated that €1.5 billion ($2 billion) would need to be added, totaling the developmental costs to €10.3 billion ($12.7 billion). In 2006, Airbus stopped publishing its reported cost after reaching costs to €10.2 billion and then provisioned another €4.9 billion, after the difficulties in electric cabling and 2 years' delay for an estimated total of €18 billion. In 2014, the aircraft was estimated to have cost $25 billion (£16 billion, €18.9 billion) to develop. In 2015, Airbus said development costs were €15 billion (11.4 billion, $16.95 billion), though analysts believe the figure is likely to be at least €5 billion ($5.65 billion) more for a €20 billion ($22.6 billion) total. In 2016, the A380 development costs were estimated at $25 billion for 15 years, $25 minus $30 billion, or €25 billion $28 billion. To start the program in 2000, Germany, France and the UK loaned Airbus €3.5 billion and refundable advances reached €5.9 billion $7.3 billion. In February 2018, after an Emirates order secured production of the unprofitable program for 10 years, Airbus revised its deal with these countries to save $1.4 billion 17% restructured terms, to lower the production rate from 8 in 2019 to 6 per year. On 15 May 2018, in its EU appeal ruling, the WTO concluded that the A380 received improper subsidies through $9 billion of launch aids, but Airbus acknowledges that the threat posed to Boeing by the A380 is so marginal with 330 orders since its 2000 launch that any US sanctions should be minimal, as previous rulings showed Boeing's exposure could be as little as $377 million. In February 2019, the German government disclosed that it was conducting talks with Airbus regarding €600 million in outstanding loans. Following the decision to wind up the A380 program, Europe argues that the subsidies in effect no longer exist and that no sanctions are warranted. Production. Geographical logistics sequence for the A380, with final assembly in Toulouse. Major structural sections of the A380 are built in France, Germany, Spain, and the United Kingdom. Due to the section's large size, traditional transportation methods proved unfeasible, so they are brought to the Jean-Luc Lagardère Plant Assembly Hall in Toulouse, France, by specialized road and water transportation, though some parts are moved by the A300-600ST Beluga transport aircraft. A380 components are provided by suppliers from around the world. The four largest contributors, by value, are Rolls-Royce, Safran, United Technologies and General Electric. Entry into service. A Singapore Airlines A380 at Zurich Airport nicknamed Super Jumbo, the first A380, MSN003, registered as 9-volt SCAR, was delivered to Singapore Airlines on 15 October 2007 and entered service on 25 October 2007 with flight number SQ380 between Singapore and Sydney. Passengers bought seats in a charity online auction paying between $560 and $100,380. 2 months later, Singapore Airlines CEO Chu Chung Seng stated the A380 was performing better than either the airline or Airbus had anticipated, burning 20% less fuel per seat mile than the airline's 747-400 fleet. Emirates' Tim Clark claimed that the A380 has better fuel economy at Mach 0.86 than at 0.83, and that its technical dispatch reliability is at 97%, the same as Singapore Airlines. Airbus is committed to reach the industry standard of 98.5%. Emirates was the second airline to receive the A380 and commenced service between Dubai and New York in August 2008. Qantas followed, with flights between Melbourne and Los Angeles in October 2008. By the end of 2008, 890,000 passengers had flown on 2,200 flights. In February 2009, the 1 millionth passenger was flown with Singapore Airlines, and by May of that year 1,500,000 passengers had flown on 4,200 flights. Air France received its first A380 in October 2009. Lufthansa received its first A380 in May 2010. By July 2010, the 31 A380s then in service had transported 6 million passengers on 17,000 flights between 20 international destinations. Airbus delivered the 100th A380 on 14 March 2013 to Malaysia Airlines. In June 2014, over 65 million passengers had flown the A380, and more than 100 million passengers, averaging 375 per flight by September 2015, with an availability of 98.5%. In 2014, Emirates stated that their A380 fleet had load factors of 90 to 100%, and that the popularity of the aircraft with its passengers had not decreased in the past year. Now, why the Airbus A380 production stop? Airbus A380, the over 500-seater double-deck aircraft, which came at a list price of $446 million, inspired awe among passengers and aviation enthusiasts, but put serious pressure on airline accounts. When it flew for the first time just over a decade ago, the Airbus A380 was famously hyped for being a bird so enormous that infrastructure at airports would have to be expanded to accommodate it. Airbus has now announced that the Super Jumbo has only a couple more years to live. The world's largest passenger airliner will not be produced after 2021. Emirates, the A380's biggest customer, will take delivery of 14 more aircraft over the next 2 years. The Dubai-based carrier has restructured its order, cutting the order book with Airbus from 162 aircraft to 123. As a consequence, and given the lack of order backlog with other airlines, Airbus will cease deliveries of the A380 in 2021. The over 500-seater double-deck aircraft, which came at a list price of $446 million, inspired awe among passengers and aviation enthusiasts, but put serious pressure on airline accounts. The fuel-guzzling luxury jet also faced powerful competition from dual-engine long-range aircraft such as the Airbus A380 and A330neo, and the Boeing 787 and 777 families, all of which made more financial sense for carriers. When it first took off in 2007, the A380 was expected to cater to a market of 1,500 giant aircraft connecting global hubs such as London, New York, Dubai and Tokyo. But as of now, Airbus has sold only about 250 A380s, and has never made a profit on the aircraft. As orders shrank, Airbus has been cutting employees, and the future of jobs at the company is now heavily dependent on the success of its new generation of aircraft. Emirates has decided to replace its A380 order with A350s and A330s, and will take deliveries of 70 of these smaller aircraft in place of 39 A380s. The A380 is seen as being complicated and expensive to build, with aircraft parts being manufactured in France and Germany, fuselage, Spain, tail section, and Britain, wings, and the final assembly and finishing being done in Toulouse and Hamburg. However, what really killed the plane was the fact that the industry, already leaning towards more efficient aircraft when the A380 first took wing, has in the years since made a decisive shift away from giant machines to smaller, wide-bodied jets. Indeed, even as Airbus conceived the A380, its competitor, Boeing, was working on plans for its own superjumbo. But the American company took the call to give up that idea and instead put its money on the smaller and more efficient 787 Dreamliner. Airbus did have a plan to revamp the A380 to make it more efficient, but did not have an order book that would justify the investment. The stoppage of production does not, however, mean the majestic beast will become extinct in the skies. The existing fleet of A380s, in the service of carriers such as Emirates, Singapore Airlines, Lufthansa, Qantas, British Airways, and Air France, will continue to operate for at least another 10 years. But the Airbus program, long delayed and over budget, never really shook off predictions that it would be a white elephant of the skies. So why did the world's largest passenger aircraft, described as a hotel in the sky, fail after just 12 years of production? The A380, whose wings are made at Airbus UK, was a bold challenger to US rival Boeing's dominance of the large aircraft market. While Airbus was taking a multi-billion-dollar bet that airlines would want big aircraft in the future, Boeing was developing its smaller, nimbler, and seemingly more successful 787 Dreamliner. Carrying about 550 passengers, but with capacity for more, over a range of 8,000 nautical miles, the A380 was pitched at the fast-growing Asia and Middle East markets, where airlines were keen to fly more people per flight. The A380 also boasted more than 500 square m of usable floor space, enabling carriers to offer plush first-class suites, as well as bars, beauty salons and duty-free shops. But after an initial surge of orders, especially from Dubai-based Emirates, demand dried up and the program has never turned a profit. The whole program is thought to have cost $25 billion £19.4 billion, and has been dogged by controversies over subsidies from the French and German governments. Last year, the World Trade Organization ruled that the EU failed to comply with requests to end state aid to the planemaker, ramping up trade tensions between the bloc and the US. Of which 234 had been delivered. Its target was to sell 700 in total. Ironically, the double-decker planes are popular with passengers, but airlines have come to view them as inefficient. Some argue that the A380 is too large, making it unprofitable when too many seats go unfilled. And Willie Walsh, boss of British Airways owner IAG, just last week suggested that the plane, while good, was too pricey. With fuel prices rising and campaigners questioning the environmental impact of aircraft, some airlines chose to opt for smaller, but more efficient, planes produced by both Boeing and Airbus. Some airlines preferred to wait for more details about Boeing's new family of 777s, deliveries of which start in 2020, which has fewer seats but the same range, more payload, and 2 fewer engines. Since 2005, a total of 57 firm orders for the A380 have been cancelled by airlines including Emirates, Virgin Atlantic and Lufthansa. A cargo version of the plane also never took off because of a lack of interest. Not surprisingly, speculation that the aircraft could be scrapped has swirled for years. Although Airbus could have continued to produce the A380 in limited numbers, experts say. However, a decision by its biggest customer, Emirates, to downgrade an order appears to have forced Airbus's hand. Thank you for watching.